Hello and welcome to the Feel Good Show. I'm your host, Matthew David Vasko. My friends call me Matt or Vasko, but like no one calls me Matthew David, except maybe my mom when I'm in trouble. Like even now, still to this day, every once in a while, she'll get, she's had it with me and she just says, Matthew David. And I know I am in trouble. But I digress. This is the Feel Good Show. This is the show about lifting you up and making you feel good. Each episode will feature a feel good news segment and interviews with people who are working to make a positive difference in the world. We'll feature one creative person or luminary who's working hard to promote good things or good feels. One person who's making a difference in their community, and please feel free to nominate people from your community for that segment. And we'll feature one band or musician who makes music that picks you up and makes you feel good. This episode, our premiere episode, will feature film and TV director Dana Nachman, executive director for the public benefit organization Young and Healthy, Mary Donnelly-Crocker, and singer, songwriter, drummer, Ben Vasko of the group Adoremus. But first, some feel-good news. Our first feel-good story comes to us from Nashville, Tennessee. Here we have a sign that says, Happy Adoption Day. This is a story about a 12-year-old boy named Andrew who was in the foster care system there in Nashville, and he was taken into a foster family by the name of the Gills. And the Gills had a boy of their own, Jock, who was about the same age as Andrew, and the two boys became fast friends. Much to Andrew's delight, the Gill family made the decision to go ahead and adopt Andrew, and now the two best friends are brothers. So that's just a lovely adoption story out of Nashville, Tennessee. And we thank Richard William of Kindly Nine for that story. Our next story comes from the page Meaning to Life on Facebook. Here we have a picture of two total strangers. This photo was submitted to the page by this gentleman here named Rob. His name is Rob Edwards, and he just happened to open the door for this anonymous woman as they were entering the bank one day. It just happened to be the day of Rob's son Cole's graduation. But what makes this story special is that this chance encounter ended up turning into the woman making the decision to give a little gift to Rob to give to his son on his graduation day, a gift of money. She said, when you talk about your boy, you glow. You are a blessing to him, and I want to bless him too. And Rob was just so moved by the woman's kind action that he asked if he could take that photo with her, which he shared. And it's just a lovely story about a random act of kindness. And it just seems like the world needs more of those random acts of kindness, doesn't it? Finally, we have a story about a hero dog. We always love hearing great animal stories. Here we have a picture of a 1-year-old Shiloh Shepherd and Shiloh's owner, Cam Laundrie. This is the Shiloh Shepherd here. The Shiloh Shepherd's name is Tinsley. And the great story here is that Cam just goes everywhere with Tinsley. And one day Cam and a friend were driving in his truck, which happened to overturn, sadly, on the I-89 freeway connecting New Hampshire to Vermont. And it actually ejected Cam and the passenger. What's what's wonderful and fascinating about this story is that Tinsley ran out alongside the freeway until she gained the attention of state troopers. And the dog then led the officers to the damaged section of guardrail and onward to the men who had been ejected from their vehicle and were beginning to experience hypothermia. Our canine hero probably saved these men's lives. So thank you, Tinsley, and thank you, Good News Network, for that story. And that's some feel-good news to help brighten your day a little bit. And now on to our guests. Hi, I am here with Dana Nachman. She is a director from Northern California, and she's got lots of exciting projects that she's been working on in recent years. She did Bat Kid Begins. She did Dear Santa. Those are both documentary films. And she did the documentary television series, Pick of the Litter. So welcome, Dana.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
It's such a joy to have you. It's really a pleasure to get to meet you. I absolutely love your work. So thank you so much for being on with us.
You're kind.
I wanted to start with Bat Kid Begins, kind of go a little bit in chronological order because that was the first of the few I mentioned there. I was just amazed with how you were able to capture all of those events that transpired so quickly around Bat Kid Begins. How did you catch wind that that was happening, and how were you able to get organized and get to San Francisco so quickly?
So it's very funny. So this was a huge viral sensation. I think 1 billion people had watched it on the day of. And funnily enough, I was not one of the 1 billion people who watched it. I was like working on a film. I was not on any social media or on the web that day. I just kind of missed it. And the next day I was on a conference call with a bunch of men, like middle-aged men, and all of them were talking about this Bat Kid thing and this little boy. And I was like, why are all these guys talking about this? It was curious the way they were all so enthused about it. Yeah. So I looked it up and I was like, oh gosh. And I was really looking for like a lighthearted, amazing feel-good story at that time. And I was like, oh, I botched it. This would have been so perfect. You know, whoever's doing the documentary on that is so lucky. I was sure somebody was doing it. So a couple weeks went by and talked to a friend of mine who worked at NBC. We used to be job share partners at NBC. And I said, what are you working on? And she said, oh, I'm trying to get an interview with the Bat Kid. And I said, oh, wow. Like, that's an amazing story. She said, I'm calling over to Make-A-Wish after this. And I was like, oh, ask them if who's doing their documentary. And if nobody, or, you know, if they need somebody to call me. And so just kind of a joke. And like 5 minutes later, she calls me back and she says, hey, they won't give me an interview with Bat Kid, but they'll meet with us tomorrow morning at 9 about a documentary. And I was like, wait, what? So like, I had to kind of like come up with an idea to be able to tell them in the meeting, like the next morning. And my thought was, because obviously I had missed it, to crowdsource it, you know, because it was, you know, 2015, every person and their mother who was there had a camera. Sure, yeah. Everybody had a phone. I was like, what a cool thing, because the whole thing was viral and crowdsourced, really. Why not crowdsource a film about it? So that was my idea. So we show up, we totally hit it off with the CEO and the head of marketing. And you know, it sounded like, they're like, okay, let us think about it. A lot of people have approached us, but we like your vibe, but let us think about it. And on the way out the door, I said, you know, you didn't shoot it, did you, by chance? And they're like, oh yeah, we had a guy there with like 3 cameras to shoot it for our gala, for a little video for our gala. And I was like, okay. And so then we ended up, they came back and said yes to us. And, oh, but one other funny thing that happened was, one thing they asked us when they said that a lot of people had approached, they said, listen, we really want it for the 1-year anniversary of The Wish so that we could put it on screens at downtown San Francisco at City Hall. I was like, oh yeah, sure, no problem. And that would have been like about 10 months, like by the time, you know, like 10 or 11 months. But by the time we got it all going, it would have been like 9 months to make it. And I had never made anything in less than like 2 years. But I was like, oh yeah, of course I could do that. No problem. And so I think it was that they liked my resume. Plus they liked the fact that I would get it done in basically less than a year. And then we made it, we made our deadline, and it taught me how to work on a different pace, which was good. Yeah. And that's a long-winded way of how it happened.
Fantastic. Wow. Well, it's just an absolutely joyful story.
Oh, I loved it. I loved every minute of working on it, and it was fabulous. Yeah.
I mean, it just, for me, it just shows the beauty of humanity, how beautiful people can be,
yes,
you know, to one another. Because like the whole city united around this event. It's awesome.
Yeah, and the whole world. I mean, like, people stopped what they were doing. President Obama tweeted at it. I mean, people flew in from out of town to just see this. It was like a wave of positivity. And everybody that we got to work with. So we worked with all the principals of the day, like everybody who planned it, everybody who played the different roles, like the Penguin and Batman and the damsel in distress. Like, they were all just such special people that, like, it takes certain kinds of people to pull something like this off in the grand scale that they did. And then that's like infectious. And I loved working with all those people. They all had this childlike magic about them as adults. And that's something that always really resonates with me. And I like to surround myself with people like that. And I like to be like that. So it was awesome. It was just
wonderful, great. Wonderful. And then this year, the big hit, you know, documentary wise, I don't know, I just felt like Dear Santa was like the breakout hit of the year. Like, everybody, people need feel good right now, you know, and people were really, really seeking that out, I thought. So, so tell me, how did that all come together? What was sort of, what made you want to tell that story?
Yeah, that was awesome. Actually, I learned about the story. So the story is that the United States Postal Service has been getting letters written to Santa Claus for more than 100 years. And for more than 100 years, they've been dealing with them in one way or another. They work with the letters, and there's hundreds of thousands of them. And about 10 years ago or a little more, my mom bought me a book that she found at the post office, and it told the story of this program of working with the Santa letters. And I read it to my kids, and I read it every year. And every year I was like, oh, this would be such an amazing film. But at the time I was doing much darker films. I was a journalist, and I worked for NBC for a long time and other TV stations. And I was a news person, and I did 3 films that were really dark. And I was always looking, starting with Bat Kid, to do lighter stuff. But I thought, you know, there's no space in the industry for like lighthearted documentaries. So I kind of like put that aside until Bat Kid happened. Right after Bat Kid, I did another feel-good film called Pick of the Litter. And then right when I was working on the Pick of the Litter series, so like our film got optioned to be a series for Disney Plus. And right when that happened, I thought, okay, I have this cred now, I would say, as a feel-good documentarian, who can make these stories, make them and sell them. So I approached the United States Postal Service, and I said, I've been fascinated with your program about Dear Santa for a long time. I'd love to be able to make a film about it. And, you know, we negotiated it for several months, and they finally said yes. And so I got to make the film 2019, right before the pandemic. We shot the whole thing between Thanksgiving and Christmas, following a bunch of letters that kids wrote through them getting adopted by elves that were anointed by Santa, and then through the kids getting their gifts. And then it was just really a pleasure to make. And then, you know, soon after, the world shut down for COVID, and we were making the film all through the first 5 months of COVID, or 6 months. And so every day it was Christmas here in my house, you know, with my kids all home from school, and we were just working on it. And it was really joyous to be working during that time and working on something so positive. And then it came out at the end of that year, at the end of 2020. And like, you know, when you saw the shots of 2019 of all the people at Rockefeller Center and all the different kids in classrooms writing their letters, it was just really touching that wasn't happening anymore. But it was really also made you feel good about humanity, that there's all these people who work on making these dreams come true for little kids. It was awesome.
Yes. Just just a wonderful story and a wonderful program, the Postal Service.
Such a cool thing. Such a cool thing. And, there was one scene, I was really bummed it never made it into the film, but it was like probably my favorite scene to shoot. But we had an issue with releases with all the kids at the end, but we went into this post office facility, like a big facility in Cleveland. And they did an angels program where like different people who were just on the like conveyor belt lines, with all the packages, they would adopt one letter. Each postal worker would adopt one letter to, it was hundreds of letters. Oh, wow. And it was just it was so touching that these people who were, don't have like a lot, we're doing it year after year after year. And it was very touching to watch it all.
So neat. You mentioned the Pick of the Litter series on Disney Plus. My family, I've got 11-year-old boy-girl twins. We all love Pick of the Litter. Is there going to be a season 2?
No, there isn't. Disney,
oh gosh,
I know. So we did. I don't know if you've seen the film. So there was a film.
I did not know there was.
Oh, so you should watch the film. That's another.
This is good.
So the film is on Hulu, so you can watch that, and that'll give you another fix. And then we did a series. No, I mean Disney Plus. I think they kind of morphed into just doing Disney products. I think. So no, we're not doing another one, but maybe we should on a different network later. That would be awesome.
Something to keep in mind.
It was very fun to do. Yeah. And so that one's about all the like a litter of the film is about a litter of puppies that we went the day they were born, and then we followed them through them becoming a guide dogs for the blind or getting cut. So it's a very rigorous program. And then which ones made it, which ones didn't. So the film was 5 in the same litter. And the series on Disney Plus they were all from different litters, but which ones would make it and which ones didn't.
I see. Yeah, it was exciting. You're rooting for them, of course, but sometimes it was sort of the more spirited, playful pups that washed out, I mean, they didn't have the focus or whatever, but they were sure adorable. They were sure cute.
Oh my God, every one of them is adorable. I just saw one in my neighborhood like 2 days ago. I was walking my dog, and there was one from Guide Dogs for the Blind, and a high school girl who goes to the same high school as my kids. She was the puppy raiser, and I found out that she could bring them to the school. So now I think my son's going to apply to be a puppy raiser.
Oh, wonderful. So what about for you? What are you working on now?
So right now I'm working on a series about Dear Santa that'll be on ABC stations and then Hulu next Christmas. So we just shot that during COVID, which was very interesting. It was stressful the first time we did it, but then we added this other layer of shooting in COVID and then Omicron coming, and it was crazy. Yeah. But it was so beautiful to watch these kids get their letters, and we had to do a lot of planning ourselves, whereas with the film, when we did letter writing events, they were already in schools or they were in post offices, and now we had to like make them ourselves because they had to be outside and nobody was having events. So we kind of conjured up all these letter writing events at like boys and girls clubs, and that was so awesome, just to be around kids again and be around groups of kids again, and get them thinking creatively about their wishes and dreams, and it was awesome. And so that's going to come out in December. I'm really excited to get that. We're working on
wonderful. We'll have to watch for that. And then what's sort of your, because I'm seeing a pattern here, what's sort of your vision for your career going forward? What other kinds of projects what are you jonesing to work on?
Gosh, I mean, my pie in the sky dream, which I'm not really, it's just not really in my wheelhouse 100%, is to make romantic comedies. That would be what I really love to do. I don't know, I would never quit documentaries because I love making them, and I feel like that's something I know how to do. Rom-coms are something I just think I could be good at, and I made some shorts just to see if I could do it, and so I did two of those. I was planning on doing a trilogy of romantic comedies that had female protagonists of different generations. So I did the 20-year-old protagonist, I did the 80-year-old protagonist, and then I was looking for a middle-aged one, but I was getting kind of like stumped, I think, because it's too close to home. So all the middle-aged tropes kind of were feeling a little war torn for me and negative, or I don't know. So, but I might be percolating something now, but I would love to do rom-coms. And then also just, I'm not going to close the door to anything that's not like lighthearted and life affirming. That's kind of what I've been doing lately. I think they just have to be awesome stories that I feel like need to be told, whether they're light or not, but.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, sometimes heavy stories can be life affirming in the end too.
Yeah.
So sometimes really positive messages can come from surprising places. So you just
totally. Yeah. One thing we're pitching right now, or about to start pitching, is a series, like a limited part series on horse therapy. And we've shot a couple days on it. And that's, it's about therapy in terms of like what you might just go to a therapist and sit on a couch to do, kind of run of the mill things people have, like stress and depression and, relational problems and stuff like that. But all through therapy with horses. And I found just, even though it's kind of tough stuff to go to, to delve into, or loss, grief, some of them, it's really fascinating. And I've learned a lot just from being on these 2 days of shooting. And I've loved that. And I would love to see where that goes. So that's something we're pitching. Not super light, but they're horses. So that's fun. And I'm a little scared of horses. So a little bit. Yeah. Like I hide behind the cameraman the whole time.
So, well, that's fair. They're very big.
Yeah. I'm just not used to it. I'm like, I never have been around them. So I'm a little like, people are always like, oh, are you a big horse person? I'm like, no, not at all. I'm just a big, I like relationships and thoughts between, people and, more like the stuff of life, more. And it just so happened I thought horse therapy was cool. So
yeah, it does sound cool.
It's really cool. It's neat. Beautiful, beautiful animals too. So nice to shoot.
Let's talk about impact a little bit. What kind of impact do you hope to have through your work?
I mean, I guess the biggest like theme I see is sort of like a pay it forward type thing or like a drop in the bucket makes these ripples kind of. Those are the themes that I think keep going. Like, if you watch, whether it be Bat Kid or Pick of the Litter, where so many people it takes to like volunteer to make these dogs, something that like frees just one visually impaired person, that kind of work and dedication, it means so much to one person. And then that person goes on and lives a fulfilling life, and who knows what they're going to do for others. And I think that kind of like pay it forward, rippling out. I think, I know how we all feel when we watch movies that, speak to us. I think it's very powerful. So I think whatever I can make that does that and inspires anybody to do anything that they might not have otherwise, I mean, that's awesome.
Fantastic. And if you could help people to know or understand one thing, what would it be?
Gosh, I think that what you do matters, and that you can make a difference in a very small way. I mean, even something as simple as smiling at somebody at the store, or doing the littlest thing makes a big impact, especially these days, because everybody's like glued to their phones and not really paying attention. I think you do something very small that means a lot, or you could do something big, like make a movie or make a YouTube show or anything. I mean, I think it all really matters, and it's the connective tissue to life, and there's a lot of things that are algorithms and such that are trying to get us to look at scary things all the time and dark and depressing things. And so I think there's a lot of antidotes to that. And I think we could all be a part of it, and we shouldn't feel, any of us, whether you're a little kid, like my kids or your kids, or an elderly person, all the way in between, that we can change this and turn it around, just like one, it sounds cheesy, but like one smile at a time, I think.
That does not sound cheesy at all to me. That sounds wonderful. I completely agree with you. So Jane Goodall has a wonderful quote. She says, "We all make a difference in the world. It's up to us to decide what kind of difference we want to make."
I love that. Yes. That gave me chills. I like that. Well, it's true, because you can make a very negative, impact. Like you're doing it one way or the other. So why not move it towards good? Yeah.
Yeah, that's what this show is all about, just
Yeah.
trying to inspire people to get out there and do that thing that lifts their spirits and makes them feel good and spreads more good feels in the world. So, well,
It's
thank
kind
you.
of strange that more people don't gravitate towards that because it does feel good in the end. It's like, why would you click on the thing that's going to make you scared and sad? But we do it still. Why?
It's true. I don't know. It's a mystery. Well,
Really?
there you go. There's your next documentary.
Too dark. Too dark.
Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure having you.
Thank
Best
you
of
for
luck
having
on
me.
all your projects, and maybe we'll see you again sometime.
That'd be great. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Bye. My next guest is Mary Donnelly-Crocker. She's the executive director of Young and Healthy Pasadena, a nonprofit organization helping children and youth in the Pasadena area. Welcome, Mary.
Thanks, Matt. It's really nice to be with you today.
Great. Thanks for being here virtually. So I love Young and Healthy. I think so highly of your organization. So I really wanted to have you on to talk about it a little bit. Now, it seems to me like Young and Healthy does a lot. Can you kind of give us a brief overview of their services?
Well, it feels like we do a lot on my end too. Yeah, we're a healthcare organization that's really designed to help fill the gaps for families who can't access healthcare like other people can. So we provide medical, dental, and mental health services at no cost to low and middle income families. All of that comes with all the things that go with it: case management and pharmacy and eyeglasses or whatever that child needs. In addition, we have other services like insurance. You can refer to us for insurance. If you're uninsured, you can come to us and get insured. So we have full-time staff that does that. One of our newer programs is we actually do taxes for people. Oh, wow. And I know that sounds kind of counterintuitive. Why is a healthcare organization doing taxes? I know that doesn't quite make sense. But we know that there is a clear connection between poverty and health. And if we can help lift people out of poverty a little bit, we're going to hopefully improve their health. And the reason we're doing this is because we hope that when we help low-income people do this, their taxes, we can help them qualify for something called the Earned Income Tax Credit, and they get a little more cash in their bank account, and we think that will help people. So we do all of those things, plus we have a huge array of prevention and education programs that are both. So we do both direct health services and supportive services.
Wow, wonderful. And I mean, that's probably talking kind of like normally what Young and Healthy does. How has your role changed during the time of COVID?
A lot, like everybody.
Yeah.
Young and Healthy had to change everything. Everything we do had to change. In the beginning, when we were really shut down, doctors' offices were shut down too. And the conduit that we had to reach children, the schools, they were shut down. And so although we knew there were kids who might be sick out there, they weren't getting to us very easily because the normal communication system was down because the schools were shut down. So we had to really change. In the first few months of the pandemic, our staff called about 2,000 people and just did a welfare check. Hey, is everything okay? And do you need anything? And we found out some people were definitely not okay. And then we were able to offer them services. So that was a big shift, just changing how we communicated with people. Everything went virtual, of course. All of our parent education, everything we did went virtual. But then we were really tasked in a different way, which was to look at what the current needs for families were and try and meet those needs. And it's things we'd never done before. So we suddenly started doing things like delivering lunches. One of the things that we discovered was that although the school district had free lunch, that was, you could come pick it up. But if you didn't have a car and the school was far away from you, your kid wasn't eating.
Oh, wow.
And so we created a whole volunteer thing, and we had about 7 routes that we were doing. And somebody went to the main food distribution place in the morning, and they had 7 or 8 families they delivered food to, and they took it out and did that. So certainly we'd never done anything like that before. Same thing with clothes. There's an organization in Pasadena that provides school uniforms and clothes for kids. But again, schools were shut down, and people still needed clothing for their kids. And so they reached us. And when we were doing these thousands of calls, we found out too, hey, have they outgrown their clothes? Do you need a new set of underwear and socks and a couple of shirts for your kid? And then we got those to people. We also did some kind of direct stuff with COVID. Lots of nonprofits in the community shifted to providing food. Lots of places did, which was needed, huge need for that. But we also discovered that families needed other things like shampoo, laundry detergent, hand sanitizer, all that kind of stuff. And so we created what we called pandemic boxes, pandemic relief boxes. We weren't all that creative at that point. Just like, okay, there's boxes of stuff, you need it. And we created about 350 of these. Some of it got donated, and some of it we actually got some grant money for. And these boxes included laundry detergent, soap, diapers sometimes. And then later we got lots of other cool donations. They got books to take home and games and puzzles for kids. And then we got these things out the door within a few weeks so that people could do their laundry, literally. That's really how basic it was. So we did a lot of that work. And then we got very involved in the whole COVID testing and vaccine world. And we partnered with a church in Altadena who helped us bring COVID testing to the community. And in the time that we were involved with them, we did about 11,000 tests. This is more than a year ago. Wow. They're back up running again, but this time that church is kind of stable and doing it without our help, which is really cool. So we shifted to a lot of things we would have never guessed. We learned, for instance, a couple of things that were really tough, which was kids were home at school. Everybody got a Chromebook to work on. That was all great. But a lot of kids didn't have headphones. And there's 4 or 5 kids at home, sometimes even 2 kids at home. And if you didn't have a headset, it was really hard to study, sure. Right? Lots of our kids were in therapy, or to do therapy, when grandma's sitting on the couch next to you, Right. And so we did a big headphone drive, and we got people to mail us headphones, and then we got them out to the community. So I think one of the big shifts was that we tried to listen to what the newest community needs were, and then tried to take action to mitigate those needs. I mean, it wasn't our traditional sending a kid to a dentist, but it was still a need that people had at that moment. And we tried to respond in that way. So it changed us a lot.
No doubt. Now I'm going to change topics just slightly here, because I know part of what Young and Healthy has done as well is train teachers in trauma-informed care.
Right.
Can you talk a little about trauma-informed care? What is that?
Yeah,
it fascinates me.
It's sort of one of my favorite things now. Trauma-informed care is exposing people to this whole new body of knowledge. The Center for Disease Control and Kaiser Permanente did this research in the late 90s that really was able to link what happens in our early childhood, if it's traumatic, to our lifelong outcomes. And these outcomes have to do with our health, our ability to learn, our ability to function well in the community. And it all can stem from the root causes of having too much trauma on our brains when we're little. And if you get exposed to too much trauma when you're little, it's like a dose response. You get too big a dose. A little dose we can all handle. You get too much of a dose of trauma and really stressful things, it actually alters your brain. It actually alters the size of your brain, how your brain functions. And then when your brain function changes, well, you don't necessarily do so well in school. You might not be able to stay regulated and calm. And so when we learned about this research, we thought one of the things that needs to happen, people just need to know about this. Yeah. We didn't know how devastating these early stressors in kids' lives could be. And so we started a whole education campaign, and that's what you're talking about schools. And in the last 4 or 5 years or so, we have trained every principal, superintendent, social worker, teacher, classroom in the Pasadena Unified School District, and have branched out even from there, doing other school districts. But it was bigger than just the schools, because this is a community issue. Everybody needs this. We've done churches and other community groups, even swim instructors. I mean, anybody who's dealing with the public hopefully will know about this. We were pre-COVID, we were able to train every employee of Huntington Hospital. That's 3,400 people got trained in this. And just this week, I finished my last one this morning. We've started a new relationship with the police department. And we have created a trauma-informed care educational session just for them, so that they have a broader understanding about human behavior and why people might react the way that they react when they have an encounter with a police officer. And so this is the next big thing we're doing, and it's really exciting to get to another contingency of the community who has a lot of contact with the community. And we hope that we can help them, do a better job and be more compassionate and kind in our work. And that's what that's all we're all trying to do.
I feel like compassion's the key word there. Like,
yeah.
I've actually seen teachers use this in the classroom, and I just feel like it shifts their mindset,
right,
and shifts them into a place of approaching a child with compassion, where they might have been punitive before.
Correct.
In a moment. It feels like it produces some sense of understanding in the adult that this child might be going through something very difficult for them,
right,
and reacting in a way that seems like they're misbehaving, but maybe they're just having some sort of a response,
right,
based on past trauma.
Right. And we talk all the time about all behavior is communication.
Yeah.
These kids are just trying to tell us something, but they might not have the words or the sophistication to tell you how stressful their life is. So they behave in a way that gets your attention, right? And sometimes that's met with a punitive action, but it's way better when it's more compassionate, right? So that one of the things we teach people about trauma, and it doesn't matter who we teach it, this is across the board. When we're all faced with a behavior out in the world, it could be a 5-year-old having a tantrum, or it could be somebody having a meltdown in a grocery store. Mm-hmm. Often our response to that is, gee, what is wrong with them? What's wrong with them?
Right.
But if we switch that, if we change the narrative a little bit, and we're just changing the narrative in our own heads, and we say, I wonder what happened. If we go from what's wrong with them to what happened to them, it actually changes everything, because it changes us first. We go from judgment to compassion. Right. And when we make that shift, and it seems like a little thing, but it's not, it's kind of a big deal, then it changes our behavior. We change first, and then we act towards that child or even adult in a more compassionate way. And when we behave in a more compassionate way, you usually get different results.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the crux of what trauma-informed care is trying to do, is trying to help us understand that how we behave in the world matters. Yeah. And that when we can be less judgmental and more compassionate, it's going to change things. And that's sort of the crux of the whole training.
Yeah. Now, somebody watching this might be saying, wow, this sounds like an amazing organization. How can I start something like this in my community? How can I do this? How can I start something like what they're doing? What would you suggest they do? Where should they start?
I think you need to start by knowing your community.
Okay.
What does your community need? They're not all the same. It's not a cookie cutter. What does your community need? Do you have a lot of uninsured kids? Do you have a lot of people living in the margins? If you do, they probably have some needs that are going unmet, right? But even, you know what, even very affluent communities have needs, right?
Sure.
They're not immune from this kind of trauma-informed care, the stress, that nobody's immune from this. Even very affluent communities still have that need, right? They still need to understand that compassion goes a long ways. So I would start whatever you're doing by learning about your community first, and gather other people around you who are like-minded, that want to look at your community and see what you could collectively do to make it better, whatever that better is. I don't know what the better is, but I wouldn't try and go it alone. I think you need pals in this work. Don't be the lone soldier. Get people to help you. If there's some really well-established organization that everybody respects, maybe try and link up with them and see if you can't move the needle just a little bit to whatever you're doing. But I would say, know your community, know what the needs are, get like-minded people together, and then just start noodling out the problem. See what comes of it. See what happens. See if you can't take the next step. It doesn't happen overnight. The planning for Young and Healthy was like 2.5 years before we opened our doors. It didn't just happen overnight. There was a lot of research that went into it, and a lot of trying to figure out how to figure, what do you do with these kids who aren't getting care? How do we do this? Right. So I just say, know your community, work with other people, and try and figure it out collectively.
Right. Start talking to people. It's so good to hear you say that about 2.5 years, because I think a lot of times people get inspired and they want to dive right in and start making a difference. And if you do that work first to lay the groundwork, to get a lay of the land, then that helps you notice where the cracks are. Right.
And as you're doing that, when you're working with other people, you start to do something else that I think is really important, which is establish relationships. Because if you do things collectively, you create relationships that might not have been there before. And it is often those relationships that move the needle. It's like, well, I have this skill, I can help with this, or I have this skill, I can help with this. But if you don't know each other, and if you don't create relationships, you don't do that. We have to know and trust each other in order to change, to make a bigger impact. And so, making friends with people really helps.
Yeah. I feel like you're onto something when people start saying, I can help with that. Right. When you have an idea and somebody says, I can help you, and here's how. Now, then you start to feel like, okay, I must be onto something here, because. And
I think also being open to the kinds of things people can help you with. You don't know what, sometimes you don't even know what you need, right? I always think of this one volunteer we were getting all these doctors to volunteer. We're all very excited. It's, it's all these professionals, all these people. And we used to have dinners for them to teach them about what we were doing. And so we'd have dinners. And this woman got very excited about what we were doing. And she says, but I'm not a doctor. I don't know how to help. I don't know what to do, but I want to help you. And she says, what are you doing? And I said, well, we're doing these dinners and we're having at somebody's house. And then, we talk to people. And she says, who does the dishes?
Yeah.
And I said, well, I do. And she says, okay, you can stop doing the dishes. I'll come and I'll clean up.
Hooray for her. That's
right. I mean, great. You just don't, right? You don't know. But that little thing, that helped. Yep. That helped. And I think you have to be open to what people have to offer you. And sometimes they offer you things you didn't even know you needed.
Right on.
Yeah.
So some people watching might want to help out Young and Healthy Pasadena. How can they support you?
Well, we need all kinds of help. We certainly are always looking for volunteers, and we have a whole variety of things that people could do. And you could contact us by just calling us at 626-795-5166 and ask to talk to anybody about volunteering, and we'll get you to the right person. So we always need volunteers, whether it's professional or community volunteers. Hey, we even need volunteers who bake cakes. So there's a whole lot of things that people can do here for us. And we, of course, always need financial help, always. These things don't run themselves. We pay our staff. We try and pay people a fair salary. We don't want to be part of the problem, right? We don't want our staff to be poor. We want them to be well insured. And so those are things y'all have to pay for. Sure. And so even though we have all these volunteer doctors, we have $1 million worth of expenses every year. And so we always would appreciate any connections to foundations or donors. That's always a big help too.
Great. And then what's your website if people want to?
It's www.yhpasadena.org.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your time, Mary. And
you're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Take care. Sure.
Yeah, you too. Spread the good news.
Will do. Hi, I am here with Ben Vasko. He is a songwriter, and he is also the vocalist and drummer of the band Adoremus from Toledo, Ohio. And he is also a husband and father, and just happens to be my nephew. Go figure. But he's a good guy, and I'm thrilled, of course, to introduce you to him today. Welcome, Ben.
Thanks, Matt. It's good to be talking.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining me.
Yeah, no problem.
I love your guys' music, and I thought, since I'm starting this new endeavor, it'd be a great opportunity to feature a band I love who just happens to have my nephew in it. It's awesome. sheer coincidence.
Yeah.
So I was wondering, how long have maybe you should introduce us to who the other members of the band are and how long you guys have been together.
Yeah, sure. So of course, I'm Ben. I do vocals and all the drumming for the band, a good majority of the songwriting. My guitarist is Daniel Sittler, who actually used to be a bassist, and now he's the guitarist. And then we have Trey Kane, who is our bassist. So the band's been going for, I guess coming up on 4 years now. I used to be in a band called Castle No Kings, also based out of Toledo, and I started it towards the end of my tenure in that band, just out of a desire to want to do like more worshipful music, and what I've been working on ever since. The other guys joined the band, Daniel and another previous member, Brennan, who is a fantastic piano player, joined the beginning of 2019. And then Trey joined the beginning of 2020, just before the shutdown in March, actually.
Awesome. Now, are either of these guys from your other band or no?
No. People happen to know. I met Daniel through we would play a trading card game together, and that's how I met him. And then actually Trey just was in other bands in the music scene, and Brendan, actually, our former member, knew him. And then he came in, he jammed with us, and he fit right in. And that's that.
I find your music really, really exciting and engaging. Mm-hmm. But I kind of have a hard time putting in a category. How do you guys describe, like, what genre do you put yourselves in?
I guess the best way to put it is just it's a type of like indie rock, alternative rock. We got a bunch of different influences from I guess, chamber pop. Like, so like one of my favorite bands is King's Kaleidoscope. So it's like poppier and like kind of rocky, but has like chamber instruments in it. But mainly currently what we've been doing is just like a lot of very guitar focused, more standard sort of like rock arrangement stuff with like a lot of poppy influences, I guess.
I like, I mean, I know you've got some new stuff that you've been putting out, but I'm particularly fond of one song, and I know you know what song I'm gonna name.
Yep.
I especially love the song "Hold Out for the Sun," and I'm just curious, what was the inspiration for that particular song?
So the best way to put it was initially when I was writing the song, there's another band I know of. They're called For King and Country. And I was just like, all right. What would For King and Country do in like writing this song? And a person in my life, one of my sister-in-law, has had a lot of very traumatic experiences in her life. And I was just thinking about her a lot during the writing process, and it was essentially just sort of like a message to her, like it's going to be okay. Eventually, you're going to get through it. I drew a lot of imagery from like my own experiences dealing with things, and then just sort of like taking like that knowledge and what got me through, trying to translate that into like a message for her. And then it ended up being able to, you know, transcend that and be something that, you know, a lot of more people really are connecting with.
I find that song, you know, to be such a strong, I'm just gonna be honest, I find it to be a really strong anti-suicide message.
Oh yeah.
Like this song to me is about keeping going, you know, and just being reassured and knowing that things get better.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It's just like I've struggled with depression stuff for just a long time. And, you know, there's plenty of times where just sometimes your mind is just like, you really need to end this. And you're just like, there's just a message to like, yeah, just you gotta push through it. Because on the other side there, it does get better. There is hope in the future. You are not like damaged goods. You're not hopeless. Your situation will improve and your life will be better.
Yeah. I just think, you know, sometimes we go through things in life and we think, you know, things are so hard right now. I don't know how I can go on.
Yeah.
You know, but if you find a way, if you persevere, you know, sometimes you find yourself looking back in 6 months and a year and going, how was I ever in that dark place? I don't even know how I got so low, you know, like looking back now, things are great. How could I ever have been as low as I was, you know? And I just think that's for me, that's Hold Out for the Sun. I just feel like it's a beautiful message. So I definitely want to recommend that to people who are discovering you guys, you know, as like a really awesome song, great message, great tune. And then I know you guys just put out a new single, I Pray We'll Be Okay. What's that song about?
Yeah. So I'm sure you've heard, you know, the story like 1,000 different times of just like during quarantine, a lot of people just having to deal with like just hard situations. Some people having worse situations than others, just like being stuck in your family, in your home, just not able to go anywhere. And that song is literally just you know, just a reflection of, you know, me and my wife's relationship during that time. I don't want to get into any of the specifics about exactly what happened, but if you listen to the song, you can piece together different, things that transpired, but it's just like, that was our story. And it's just, there was definitely times where just like, oh my gosh, like, I can't believe we've let our relationship get to what it is now. I pray we'll be okay. And like, but it's just like, I know we'll be okay. Also just in there's like a lot of prayer of just like, God, forgive me for how we're being with each other. And, just like help us, get to a better place. And we've come out stronger since then. And we've, since then, we faced even more difficult things, but we're getting through it much easier and better since then, so that's, it's what the song's about.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people, sort of have this idea like marriage is going to be easy, and it's a journey, and it's highs and its lows, and the thing is to keep communicating, I think, and just keep working it out,
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm going to fully admit I was one of those people who thought like, oh, this can't be like, everyone says that like, oh, marriage is hard, but like, surely it can't be that hard. And then like, you don't truly understand the intricacies of the situation until you're in it. You're like, oh, now I understand. I understand this. And like, this really is work and hard work, but it's some of the most rewarding work ever.
I find your songs to be deeply personal and meaningful. Do you like go into songs that way? Do you try to make your songs really personal?
But like, I'd say like 99% of the time they are just extremely personal because, anytime I try to write anything where it's just like, I'm trying to write to like a group of people or like kind of like general context and things, it just doesn't come out genuine. There's like a lack of that pure just emotion. And so I write from personal experience, I never originally set out to be like, wasn't necessarily trying to be a faith-based band, but it's just like, was just like such a deep part of me. It's just like, it's the me and the faith, they're just so tightly woven that I just can't separate the two. And, just a lot of times I'm like talking about different mental things I'm going through. Like we did a whole album about the concept of like, I was having panic attacks about me losing my family because like now that I'm married and I have kids and all of a sudden I have so much to lose. I didn't realize how much fear I had to lose all that. And I had to, face that, and wrote a whole album and be like, how would I even imagine to try and like get through this? But yeah, it's just like, a lot of times it's just song ideas will come from just some deep emotional, either situation I'm going through or just like this emotional feeling. There's plenty of times where like plenty of times when I was living in an apartment, I would come over to my parents' house to do laundry, for example. And I would just like sit down in front of the piano and I'd just be like, man, God, I just don't feel like I'm worthy of anything today. And I'm just like, I'm there. And I just start plinking some stuff out on the piano and I just start crying. And then you get songs like Consumed out of that, or Refill This Vessel, or Do You Love Me Regressing, just all came out of just vulnerable places where I'm just like, a lot of times it's like my end of the conversation with God and stuff. And yeah, just odd. So it is everything personal, extremely.
Well, they say you got to write what you know, so that's what you're doing,
Yeah, and plenty of times there are people that are just like, yeah, I felt this way, like too, a lot, and there's there's beauty in that and being able to connect with people on that, because plenty of times, and me trying to talk with somebody I can have a harder time trying to like connect with people, but if I like can pour out my emotions into this piece of art, a lot of times just like it'll just translates over much better.
You know, and I just think that's the beauty of music, right?
Yeah.
I mean, when we can hear a song and go and find ourselves in it, you know, that's a beautiful thing. That's a beautiful thing. And those are the kinds of songs you write, which is really exciting. All right, one final question, bonus question, if you will.
Sure.
If you could send one message to the world, what would it be?
I think the main thing I want people to walk away with is no matter who you are, what you believe, what you've done, what you've lived through, God desires to be with you and have a relationship with you. You are seen, you are loved. It is a beautiful thing that you are here and you've overcome so much and that you are alive. That's what I would love people just to walk away with.
That's a great message. And I think I hear that message in your music too. I really hear it. So we're gonna wrap things up and cut away for just a little teaser, if you will, of I Pray We'll Be Okay. Thanks so much, Ben.
Yeah, you're very welcome, Matt. It's good to talk to you.
Good talking to you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
My love, what happened to us? I took to a screen and you to a bus. My love, we're falling quick. Let us be rid of it. I wanna get better. We gotta get better. Darling, I pray we'll be okay. Be okay. Darling, I pray we'll be okay. Be okay. How vicious.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed our show, please sure to like and subscribe. If you want to support our show, please sure to shop It Matters merch on Etsy. And for daily doses of feel-good inspiration, be sure to subscribe to It Matters How We Treat One Another on Facebook and Instagram. Links in the description. Thanks again to our guests, Dana Nachman, Mary Donnelly-Crocker, and Ben Vasko of the band Adoremus. I am Matthew David Vasko, your host, and we'll see you next time. Bye.